we are live. Hello and welcome everyone to another Chat and Learn here with Power to Fly. My name is Mariella Marie, and as always, super excited to roll into this next hour with you all. Our guest speaker is calling from Long Island. We've got folks calling from Kentucky, Nebraska, Richmond, Virginia, Boston, Iowa City, Louisville, Kentucky. Go ahead and continue to drop in the chat for those who are just joining us. And if you're rewatching, write in the comments, let us know the rewatch video so that we can know where you're calling from too. We just love to know where our digital audience is. So before we get started, our guest speaker is going to drop a lot of knowledge, and I know that you all have your pen and paper ready to take notes. And I know you're going to open probably multiple tabs as well as our guest speaker drops a lot of knowledge, but I just want to go over some quick housekeeping guidelines to keep us all comfortable and confident in this next hour. So if you're here live with us, thank you for joining. We would love for you to participate, and you can participate in a number of ways. You can turn on your cameras if you feel called to do so. Of course, no shame if you don't want to turn on your cameras. I know that video fatigue is real, and especially if you got wee little ones running around, you probably want your cameras off. If you're driving, keep your cameras off. So again, no pressure to turn cameras on, but I know that some folks need that extra invitation, and we'd love to share the face-to-face virtual time with you here. Otherwise, feel free to drop in the chat throughout this conversation any questions that you didn't get to submit previous to this conversation, any of your own tips and tricks, any reflections as well that you might have. Please use the chat box as well to network amongst yourselves in the chat. I do encourage you all to drop your preferred ways of connecting and reach out to a couple folks who are joining here live. We clearly have, this same theme in mind and close to heart. So would love for you to continue the conversation with each other when we finish the conversation. Now, this is being recorded, so if anyone at any point wants to hop off mute, that's okay. Just give me a cue by either raising your emoji hand or dropping in the public chat or private chat, letting me know that you'd like to hop off mute. And as time allows, I'll give you permission to do so. And I see we've already got folks raising their hands. So that's great. So again, as time allows, I'll let folks who want to hop off mute. And as this is being recorded, just keep in mind that you will be featured in our live recording. And this is also a good reminder for anyone who signed up for this conversation to look out for a rewatch email. That rewatch email will include a link to this recorded chat so that you can rewatch it. You can share it with your friends, your family, your community. And also it will include any links to resources that our guest speaker might bring up throughout the hour so that you can access them easily there. Now, if anyone has any sensitive information and you prefer to be kept anonymous, just find me in the chat box under Mariella Marie, and you can write to me privately there, and I will raise your question or reflection and keep you anonymous. And the last thing I'll say is we'd love for you to follow Power to Fly on socials and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can keep up with all the great chats we've got in store. And if this is the first time you're joining a chat where I'm moderating, I'll just take a brief moment to introduce myself for those who have not met me online before. My name is Mariella Marie, as I said before. I am a social impact producer. I love speaking about how we can develop our emotional intelligence at home, at work, and at play. We've got a long way to go there. So if anyone is interested on sharing actionable tips or philosophizing with me on how we can deepen our emotional intelligence, would love to hear from you. You can connect with me by going to my website. The project that I'm working on is called The Positive Force Team. You can go to thepositiveforceteam.org. I'm also producing a podcast for Grow Dialogue. Otherwise, I'm happy to connect on LinkedIn, and in a minute, I'll drop my LinkedIn link in the chat box for you all to connect. All right, so without further ado, I'm gonna pass the mic to Liuba, our guest speaker here, who's calling all the way from Long Island. Liuba, let us know a little bit about yourself, why you do what you do, and what you're excited to share with us today.
Sure. So I'm Liuba Grechen Shirley. I'm a mom of three. I have an 8-year-old, 6-year-old, and 2-year-old. And I love that, Christine, you could just see from your video the hairbrush that came up. That is my life. Someone is always trying to do my hair and makeup in Zooms. So yeah, I'm a mom of three. I have spent my career working in international development and women's economic empowerment. Was not planning on running for Congress. I went to NYU for grad school and undergrad, lived in the city, did not plan on moving back to Long Island, had my first daughter, my first baby. I have one daughter and 2 sons, and realized very quickly that I didn't have paid family leave, could not get off of any childcare wait lists. Moved back to Long Island for the free childcare. My mom is here and helps watch our babies. And about a year into living here, I ran for Congress, which was the least planned thing I think I have ever done in my life. I had a representative who had been in office since I was 12 and had consistently voted to hurt working people in my district and across the country. and voted to defund Planned Parenthood 17 times, was against a woman's right to choose, even in the cases of rape or incest, and came out and supported the Muslim ban. And it just put me over the edge watching his voting record. And I ran for Congress against him with a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. I was nursing at the time, and it was the most difficult thing I've ever done, but it was also the best thing I've ever done. And we built an incredible grassroots campaign. We almost unseated him. And during that campaign, everyone said I was nuts to run with 2 small children. I was immediately judged. And about 6 months into my campaign, I put a request into the Federal Election Commission. I ended up becoming the first woman to receive approval to use some of the funds that I was raising for my campaign for childcare. And we came closer to unseating him than any Democrat ever had. And after my campaign, literally the day after, all I could think back to was the beginning and the support that I needed when I was running that I didn't have. And I launched VoteMama. I launched our PAC side first, our foundation later, and we support Democratic moms running from school board to Senate. We've now supported over 350 Democratic moms running. We want to normalize what it looks like to run as a mom and to serve as a mom. And I am super excited to be here today to chat with you about the work that we do at VoteMama. But that is me. I do this work because I've had enough of our policies failing women and children, and we can't advocate anymore. The only way we're going to actually see real policy change is by changing who has a seat at the table, by breaking down the barriers for more moms to run, and by supporting them when they do run, and then by supporting them when they get into office. So that's what we do. And I am excited to chat more.
Yes, thank you so much already. Just appreciate your story, appreciate your transparency. Thank you for the energy and of course, just the bandwidth to carve out this trail so that folks can continue on behind you and alongside of you. I want to just shout you out and say thank you so much for your work. So before we move into our questions, I'd love for you to just cover some of the key takeaways so that we can help set the stage for folks who have submitted questions previous to this conversation and who might have questions come up as you speak.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Why electing moms moves the needle on policy change? We're 27th globally in education. We're 27th in healthcare. We're the only country in the world other than Papua New Guinea without paid family leave. Childcare is more expensive for infants than it is to send your teenager to college. The childcare market is a completely failed market in this country. Parents can't afford to spend any more. Childcare centers operate on razor thin margins, and the majority of people who work at childcare centers live on public assistance. They're mostly women of color. They're lucky if they get paid $10 an hour. They can make more being a barista at a Starbucks. And we do not support the caregivers in this country. Anytime I talked about childcare or paid family leave during my campaign, I kid you not, every single time someone would say, you should ignore the women's issues and stick to the bread and butter issues. And it would infuriate me because most people don't realize that we lose $57 billion a year because of the lack of childcare, that American families lose more than $22 billion a year in lost wages because of the lack of paid family leave. These are the most basic economic issues, and yet they're completely ignored. Even after 2 years of a pandemic, we still couldn't pass Build Back Better. We still could not get universal childcare in this country, even affordable childcare. And so there are a lot of these incredible organizations that are nonprofits, that are advocacy organizations that try to change policy. But there's only so much you can do from the outside. You can write letters, you can call your members of Congress, you can go and actually have days on the Hill where you talk to your members of Congress. Most of our Congress members right now either know the issue and don't care, or they know the issue, desperately want to fix it, but don't have the political willpower among their colleagues. So the only way we're going to change this is to change who has a seat at the table. Running for office, Congress in particular, but honestly running at every level of government, is so difficult. And it's completely not designed for mothers to do this. It's designed that way on purpose so that moms don't get positions in power. And yet our voices are the ones that are missing. If you look at Congress, when I first launched VoteMama, it was only 5% of our Congress members were moms with kids 18 or younger. We're up to 7% now. But there is a reason that there are more millionaires in Congress than there are moms. And there's a reason that we have policies that fail women and children. So if you change who has the seat at the table, you actually start to have people there who understand these issues because it's their lived experience. During my campaign, about 2 months, less than 2 months into my campaign, my 1-year-old at the time broke his leg. Broke his femur, he was in a body cast, and it was one of the most awful, awful moments. And I had to fight with my insurance company. For months, they refused to pay for his 2-night stay in the hospital. And I remember sitting in my office, my congressional office, and I would have 3 cell phones on speakerphone. It would be the surgeon's office, the pediatrician's office, and the insurance company. And they would be yelling back and forth about different codes. And it would take me hours, and it was exhausting. And if you have somebody in office who has that lived experience, who understands what it's like to fight with insurance companies, who understands what it's like to fight for your child, you'll actually have people in office who get these issues and want to fight to actually make people's lives better. Right now, we have too many people in office who care about the position. They care about the glory of being a congressperson. They care about the title and the salary, but they don't really care about changing policy to actually help working families in this country. So that's what electing moms means. That's what electing Democratic moms means. It means that we'll have people at the table who understand these policies because it affects their life every single day. The next steps for reproductive rights. My 8-year-old daughter has fewer rights than my 68-year-old mother has had for the past nearly 50 years. That is not mind-boggling because we all knew it was coming, but it's depressing as hell. And the next steps, we all know what Republicans are doing. They're actively trying to control women. They're actively waging a war on women and children. The fact that we have Republicans on the news talking about a 10-year-old, and there are children on this call, so I'm not going to go into details on it, but everybody here knows. The fact that that's happening in this country is terrifying. The fact that Republicans just last week voted against a bill that would have allowed women interstate travel to go and receive an abortion in a state where it's legal is sickening. We literally have Republicans trying to keep us captive in our own bodies and now in our own states. So the next steps for reproductive rights, we need to elect Democratic pro-choice moms. That's it. I wish there was a silver bullet. I wish there was something that we could say, this is exactly what needs to happen. We need to fight harder than we've ever fought, and we need to make sure that we're electing pro-choice Democratic women who get these issues, who understand that abortion is healthcare, who have no problem saying that abortion is healthcare. That's who we need to elect. How to take action and support moms running for office. Can I ask a question? I don't know if we can do that.
Of course.
But how many
Yep.
people on this call have volunteered for a candidate? How many have volunteered on a campaign? Can we do a hand raise?
Yeah, drop a +1 in the chat if you have. Let's see. Let's get a gauge of where our audience is today. All right, we've got one person who raised their hand. Okay, a couple of +1s. So about 4 people in the chat. 5. Okay. I did
Okay.
years ago. Okay.
So that's it. To take action to support moms running for office, there are a couple of things you can do. 1, raise funds. 2, knock on doors, make phone calls, text bank, volunteer, talk to your friends about it. 3, make sure you're voting and make sure your friends are out there voting. One of the things that a lot of women don't realize is that the absolute importance of fundraising in politics, it's critical. And until we change campaign finance, which is not happening anytime soon, we need to raise money for women candidates. When a man decides to run for office, all of his male friends understands the necessary reality that they will max out to their campaign if they can, or they'll write a large check. A lot of women will think, even if they have the financial means to contribute, will think that there is more power in volunteering and just doing phone banking and text banking and knocking on doors. That is necessary. We need to raise money for female candidates. When a woman steps up to run, it's one of the hardest things to do is to raise money. If you see a woman running in your district, if you know somebody running, if you see a candidate that you like around the country, contribute. Start a giving circle. Get involved with VoteMama. Become a member of VoteMama. Start raising money for those candidates because that is when you're taken seriously and that is when you have the ability to actually run a campaign. I have spent my entire life working in nonprofits, and I decided to run against a man who had been in Congress for nearly 3 decades and who had more than $3 million in the bank. And I had no idea how to raise money. And I started calling every person I'd ever met in my entire life. And I remember being told that I had to raise $100,000 before anyone would take me seriously. I thought that was insane. And I ended up raising $126,000 in the first 2 months. And then I hired staff. And then I ended up raising more than $2 million with no corporate PAC money. That took the most unbelievable amount of time just doing call time and fundraisers. And it was very difficult, but it's doable. But it's only doable if you have grassroots behind you, if you have people who are willing to chip in and contribute to your campaign and host fundraisers. So the number one thing you can do if you want to get a mom elected, help her fundraise. The second thing you got to do is go out and knock on doors for her.
Yes, I love that. And just In a moment, we're going to get to questions, but I would love for you to just dive a little deeper if folks are interested in becoming a member. You said at VoteMama, what is the process there? What's the website? How can people get involved?
Yeah, so I'm going to give you a little secret. We are about to launch our membership arm. So we have VoteMama Pack, which you can go to our website, which is votemama.org. You can find all of the candidates. We've now supported over 120 candidates, and we're still announcing more candidates across the country for this cycle. So you can go online, you can sign up to volunteer for our candidates, you can make a contribution, please do so. We also have VoteMama Foundation, which is our nonpartisan nonprofit arm, which does all of our research. We are looking into basically moms' political participation. We are working to pass campaign funds for childcare. As I mentioned earlier, I got the FEC to approve that for all federal candidates. We now actually have to go state by state and get every state to approve that campaign funds for childcare. That campaign funds can be used for childcare for state and local candidates. So we're passing legislation across the country. We've now gotten this approved in 26 states. The goal is to get all 50. And VoteMama Lobby, so this is not public yet, but I am telling you, we are launching VoteMama Lobby in early September, which is basically our membership arm. It's the grassroots arm where we're building out membership for people to do two things. One, volunteer, get to know our candidates, get involved intimately in their campaigns. And two, help us lobby to actually get the legislation passed that we're working on so that you can be an active volunteer. So we will send you that link as soon as possible, but we are launching that the first week of September. In the meantime, go to votemama.org, sign up, get on our mailing list, make a contribution, find one of the mothers that's running in your area. Janice Weiner is actually here. She's running for Iowa State Senate. I don't know if Janice wants to wave or pop in and say hi if she's there, but she is one of our candidates. If you are in Iowa, you should volunteer for Janice. But yeah, votemama.org, sign up, and as soon as we launch, we will send it over to you. And there's Janice.
Beautiful.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead and hop off mute if you'd like to say something. I think I heard Janice. Hello. Hi, Janice. Would you like to say something? We'd love to hear from you.
There we go. Now I'm unmuted. Yes, sure. I love this organization. I really appreciate the dedication to getting Democratic moms elected. We definitely need that in my state. My personal race is I will win because I won the primary and there is no Republican and there is no, I have no Republican opponent now in November, but there are a lot more moms in Iowa who really do need the help, and I am continuing to raise money to help them. So this is with everything that's on the ballot, and Liuba talked about reproductive rights and so forth. That's very much on the ballot here. Abortion is still legal up to 20 weeks, but we know what will happen in January if we don't win more seats. So thank you so much. It's a fabulous organization.
Awesome. Thank you, Janice, and good luck. Thank you for hopping off mute there. Liuba, okay, you did such a great job setting up the stage for today's conversation. Let's roll into our questions. So let's start with this first one here. Now, of course, you touched on a lot when you were setting up the stage, so feel free to dig deeper on these questions here. And I just want to remind folks, if you're joining live, we'd love to hear from you. So maybe you didn't get a chance to submit questions previous to this moment. There's no, it's never too late. So please drop any questions in the chat, and as time allows, I will bring those up. So let's kick it off with this first question that was submitted here. Could you elaborate on the impact of electing mothers in politics?
Yes. The impact, I'm going to say the impact of electing Democratic moms in politics, because right now we were looking at the numbers. One of the research projects that we're doing is looking at the state level and how many moms are serving in office. And we already know the numbers at the federal level. But if you look at our Congress right now, there are actually more Republican millennial moms in Congress than there are Democratic millennial moms, which I thought was interesting. If you look at how people vote, the Republicans voted against the Pump Act. They voted against Build Back Better. They voted against solving the formula crisis. If you have more Democratic moms in office, we would have passed all of those. We have these policies, which I talked about earlier: childcare, paid family leave, universal health care, kindergarten, full day kindergarten. If you look at just some of these simple policies, they would be completely different. And we would have a completely different country if we had more Democratic moms in office. You look at what's happening right now across the South. We have the Republican Party actively trying to erase systemic racism in this country. Not erase systemic racism, erase the existence of systemic racism. They're literally trying to, in Texas, change the word slavery in the curriculum to involuntary relocation. That's mind-boggling to me that that's what's happening. We have Republicans trying to erase LGBTQIA people in this country. We have political refugees where parents of trans children are literally leaving from Arizona, from Texas, from Alabama. They're being forced to leave their country, their state, and go to other states within their country to save their children and to keep them safe, because we have Governor Abbott putting child protection services out against parents who are supporting their children and making sure that they get gender affirming, life-saving health care. This is what's happening in our country today. And it's not something that we can ignore. And it's something that this is the Republican Party actively trying to weaponize motherhood to spread this far-right agenda based on hate. That's the God's honest truth. That is what is happening. The fact that the Supreme Court judges all lied under oath and said that they were not going to overturn Roe, and then they did. We need to take a serious look at what is happening. And the only way to change this is to elect more Democratic moms. If we elect people into office who care about these issues, if we elect people into office who are willing to fight, I will tell you, I have now interviewed, I honestly don't know how many people I've interviewed at this point, hundreds, probably nearly 1,000 moms who have been running across the country. Every single one of them got into their race for one specific reason, and they all have a different reason, but there's usually one issue that affected their children, that affected something in their lives, where they went to their local representative, they went to their federal representative, and they tried to get help, they tried to get support, and they quickly realized that their representative was not going to do anything and didn't care. And that's why they decided to run for office. Every single mom I've ever spoken to has that one story. Those are the people that are going to get there and fight. We have, Moms for Liberty is fighting for all the wrong reasons, for all the wrong things right now that are hurting children in this country. And we need the antidote to that. We need to elect people who are there, who are going to be there to fight for their kids. You look at gun control in this country. You look at what's happening. Every mother who drops their kids off at school wonders whether or not they're going to see them at the end of the day. We all have that moment where we think, what did they wear today? Will I remember when I have to go pick them up if, God forbid, anything were to happen? Every one of us knows that feeling. And yet we have the Republican Party actively colluding with the NRA to endanger our children's lives. This is something that is happening across the country. And it's not just school, it's literally everywhere. There are mass shootings all the time, and yet we can't pass an assault weapons ban. It's common sense legislation and common sense policy where if you had more Democratic moms in office, these things would be fixed. We wouldn't have to be explaining, Senator McClellan, this is one of my favorite stories. Senator McClellan, she's a Virginia state senator. She ran for governor in Virginia last cycle. She was telling me once that she had to stand up on the floor and explain breastfeeding to the men in the state legislature because there was a piece of legislation that would have given women the chance to go and pump during the workday. And one man literally said, well, why can't she just pump, at certain times? Why can't she train her boobs basically to produce milk on a schedule so that's when she can pump? And Jennifer McClellan had to stand up and explain how nursing works because the men didn't understand it. They didn't know. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about men in office who think that, if you are raped, your body has a way to shut things down so you don't get pregnant. It's anti-science and it's crazy. And that's who's in office. So if we want to change that, we have to change who has a seat at the table. It's that simple. You need to elect people who are going to fight these policies. And our country, our policies have always failed moms. They've always failed children. They have always failed women. They have specifically always failed women of color, even more so. We need to change who has a seat at the table. And that's the only time that things are going to start to change.
Yes, thank you so much, Liuba, for just breaking it down. Oh, the bureaucracy is so toxic. Just to hear from these stories, these lived experiences. I love that you're able to give examples so that people can say, yeah, this is actually what's going on. And if I can just throw some emotional intelligence reflection here, the fact that men or whoever, they don't know about the body's natural cycle of what happens when we give birth and when, our bodies are so intelligent to be able to give food to the baby. They don't know that. And they think you can decide and put in your Google Calendar and make it appropriate for a meeting or whatever the case. It just shows how far away from our natural cycles are, that we are. And I totally agree with you. If we put more mothers in positions of leadership who can be supported as well, to not play the same game, the same, bureaucratic game of whoever has the most, unfortunately, when you were speaking in your introduction, you were saying, if most people have so much money in politics, so they don't really care about the intimate parts of what the people really need. And I love your call out and call in to say that, of course, that needs to change. But right now, this is just real talk. This is what it is. We need to raise money in order to make those changes. But I just appreciate your willingness to just keep it real in this sense, because there's so much noise also on social media and just in the medias that are also being supported by some of these thinkers that are not allowing for inclusive voices like yours to be included into the conversation. So I really hope that you get to speak more and that people get to support you more, so that we can hear this other side of the story that is so real and so important. And I just want to say thank you for that. Is there anything else yes, of course.
I'm talking here about how men don't understand how breastfeeding works. I'm going to say that before I became a mother, did not really know how breastfeeding works also. I remember thinking I was a director of a research institute at NYU, and I was finishing my MBA in the evenings. So I worked all day and then I went to class all night, and I was pregnant with my first child. And I remember thinking I was going to have this baby. I was going to take her to work with me. She was going to nurse. She was going to sleep. I had this whole grand plan of how I was going to juggle all three things. And I remember my mom just laughing at me. And my mom always tells me everything. And it was the one time she didn't give me advice, because she knew I'd figure it out on my own, and she just laughed. But honestly, until you have a baby, until you understand how all encompassing it is and how breastfeeding works and how your life is never going to be the same, you don't get all of that. You actually, when you have that lived experience, it changes. Legislators legislate on their lived experience. People pass policies on their lived experience. We actually have our very first staff member on VoteMama right now off on maternity leave. She just had a baby 2 weeks ago, and she has 6 months of maternity leave. And I'd love to be able to give her even more, but I made damn sure she at least got 6 months of paid family leave. But you legislate, you pass policies, you do all of that based on your lived experience. And that's what you need. And I will tell you that women in the workforce, we go and jump through hoops to try to make it work. Women in politics, they do the same thing. But one of the major reasons that I started VoteMama was because when I was first running, I didn't know anybody. I didn't have political connections, and I had nobody to reach out to and say, hey, what is this really like? What is the schedule like? What does it really mean? Are you really working 18-hour days? What does call time really look like? I didn't have that. So I jumped into a campaign. My mom was still teaching at the time. Thankfully, she's retired, but she worked till 3:30 every day. So for the first 6 months, I had 2 babies, 2 toddlers running around while I was running that campaign. And I jumped in because I needed to, because I just couldn't not run. But again, it wasn't something that I planned, and I didn't know. And I wanted to make sure that other moms didn't have to go through that you actually could talk to another mom in office, that you could be connected to this vast mamas network of people across the country who've done it before, because it is completely designed to keep moms out. But if you can break down these barriers, if you can change some of the structural problems, if you can actually demystify what it looks like, I will tell you, I used to have this vision of members of Congress being really smart, educated people who knew everything, who understood all the policies, who really cared. And then I ran and I got to meet a lot of them, and I got to debate my congressperson who didn't know any of that. And I realized that I was so much more qualified. And all of these moms that I've talked to who doubt whether or not they're qualified, they're so much more qualified than they realize. And most of the people in Congress don't really know all these issues. They get little briefing books, they give them some tidbits and talking points. You need people in office who can read.
Could you say that again?
My watch is talking to me. You get people in office, you need people in office who can read, who can understand the policies, and who will vote because they care about these issues. That's all you need to run for office. But it's that lived experience, and it's the no nonsense stuff that moms are good at, that's why we need you in Congress, and that's why we need you at all levels of government. And it's normalizing what it looks like. It's normalizing what it looks like to have a baby hanging on your boob while you're giving a speech. That shouldn't have to be this big taboo thing. And I will tell you, I even have supporters of mine who have criticized one of our assemblywomen in New York who gave a speech with a baby in a baby wrap. You couldn't see anything, but she was nursing while she gave a speech. And I've watched those people criticize her. It's ridiculous. You're feeding a child. You should be able to do that and speak at the same time. We can multitask.
Absolutely. And I know in your introduction as well, you were saying people are needing to leave their state in order to, be safe essentially and get access to things. And you slipped up and said country, but I actually know people who are leaving the country, who are tired of it. I've been living out of the country for a while. And they're coming to me like, I cannot take it anymore. There's so many of these isms happening and I don't feel safe. So unfortunately, that is something that's happening. And I know that we talked offline a little bit and you spent some time in Buenos Aires in Argentina. And I just remember the culture shock of seeing women breastfeeding in public and being like, I never saw this in the States. It just wasn't safe and isn't safe now, and people would be shamed, and it's the most natural thing. So this is also why I'm an advocate for traveling the world and seeing people where different people can express themselves and have access to certain things. Of course, we've got a lot of work to do in lots of areas, but it's just something that makes a bell go off and say, can we normalize this? Because this is one of the most normal things, that human beings can do. I digress, but thank you for supporting that. And I just also wanted to touch on something that you said about demystifying if you feel qualified or not. We talk about a lot about this with Power to Fly. There have been lots of studies that show that women are less likely to apply to roles if they don't meet 100% of the requirement. And we try to demystify that, like, hey, if you want to do it and you feel like you can, show up, apply, speak your truth, work with someone to help you get those, the transferable skills so that you can help, adopt that language. But I love that you're also bringing this into the world of politics. It's like, it's been such a taboo. And of course, it's like, I look nothing like these people. I have no place there and I don't qualify. So I love that you're demystifying that. And I just wanted to echo that and say, please, yes, even if you feel like you don't meet 100% of the requirements, just like in the workplace, try it out.
Yep, 100%. I can't think of the word that I'm trying to say, but it's your imposter syndrome. I always had imposter syndrome. I always was like, what the hell am I doing? I'm on stage debating somebody who's more than twice my age. Imposter syndrome exists, but the more you get into it and the more you do it, and honestly, I was terrified. The first few months of that campaign, I kept questioning, what am I doing here? And what am I doing here with a baby and a body cast while I'm running for Congress? And it was crazy, but it was necessary. And the more you do it, the less scary it becomes. I used to be terrified to speak in public, like literally terrified. And the fifth debate I had with Peter King was, I think, the most fun I've ever had doing anything remotely like that, where he ended up screaming and yelling at me. And we did a viral clip that, a video clip that went completely viral. And it was just so much fun. As long as you care about these issues and you can get up there and talk, you can run for anything and you can get over the fear.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So let's move on to this next question here. So this question that was submitted reads, what's the first step we should take as mothers in order to launch an election campaign? Would love to learn more about how VoteMama supports mothers running for office.
All right. It depends what level of government you're running for. That's really the first thing. Running for Congress, the first thing you do is first thing you do for any campaign is you start raising funds. You get your Act Blue account set up. You reach out to organizations like Emerge. You reach out to organizations like Vote Run Lead. You take their training programs. You reach out to VoteMama and you talk to us about what you want to run for, and we can answer lots of questions for you. You start fundraising. You get your volunteers together. You start knocking on doors. You start talking to people. Running for office is not rocket science. It's hard work, but it's not rocket science. It's going to take a lot of your time. It's going to take your time to talk to voters about the issues that matter, and it's going to take your time to raise the money. As a candidate, you have two jobs. Your jobs are to raise money and to talk to voters. Every single other thing your staff should be doing. And you need to raise the money to hire staff to do that, because if you try to do it all, you're not going to run a good campaign. And really that works for every level of government. If you're running for a very low level office, okay, you can have volunteers who are your campaign staff, but you need campaign staff. You need a team around you. You reach out to people in your community. Depending on what you want to run for, that matters. But honestly, get to know the people who are the movers and the shakers in your community. Get to know the volunteer leaders. Get to know the religious leaders. Get to know the community leaders. Get to know the parents in the district. Get to know the people who are doing the work in the district, because there are so many community leaders that you wouldn't even know about, honestly. But when you get to know them, they're so entrenched in their community and they're doing the hard work. Those are the people that you want to get to know. And I actually see somebody, which I know I told you I was not going to check the chat, but I see a chat question coming up about how do you get a team? What is the rest of the question? Bianca, do you want to just come off mute and ask the question?
Absolutely. I bet. Let's see. I'll just read it because I don't see them hopping off mute. But how do you get a team when you can't afford it?
Yeah. So from my experience, I launched at the end of October. I raised money for October, November, December. And I didn't know honestly how to start hiring a team. I had no idea. I had never done this before. I went to, I don't know if you guys know Arena, but Arena Pack. So I ended up talking to them. They put me in touch with a consultant who came on part-time, who helped me find a campaign manager. Um, so my first staff person was a campaign manager, and she started at the beginning of January. So for the first 2 months, I didn't have staff. I just raised the money. And that's when I got to 126,000. And that's when I hired a campaign manager. Then she hired our finance director, my call time manager, our field director, and she built out the whole team from there. But you have to raise the money first. So you start by calling every person you have literally ever met. You write a massive Excel document and you color coordinate the hell out of it so that your team wants to make fun of you and yell at you every second for this ridiculous document later. But that's how you organize your life. You color coordinate an Excel document and you write down every person you've ever known and you write down their phone number and you write down how much you think you can ask them for and you start calling. In the beginning, I was calling for $25 contributions. I still remember my first $1,000 contribution. My second $1,000 contribution was my high school boyfriend. Amy Klobuchar talked about this a lot in the campaign trail, how her ex-boyfriends gave her money. Many of my ex-boyfriends contributed. They're a good source of fundraising. You call people and you just say, I need you to invest in this campaign. The best advice I ever got was from another congressional candidate. You're not raising money for yourself, because a lot of women will have that feeling of, I don't want to ask you for money for myself. I feel really guilty about this. You're asking for an investment in your community. You're asking for an investment in your campaign. It's not for you. It's to run a campaign to elect a representative who will actually fight for the people in your district. As soon as you have that mindset shift, everything changes and you can ask for the max out contributions. It was literally what I needed to be like, I need you to max out to this campaign right now. And that's how you start to do it. And you just, it's a numbers game. The more people you call, the more money you raise. And you should be making 22 calls an hour, and very few people will actually answer, and you'll have even fewer good conversations, but you raise the money. And it's the way you do it. And then you hire a really good team.
Thank you. Bianca, do you still want to hop off mute? Okay, there, go for it. You should be able to now.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for allowing me to speak. So I'm running for a state race in rural Kentucky, and I've been raising money. When I first got my $2,000 first big one, I was like, yeah. But most of mine are small, like the ones you were talking about. However, getting that paid staff is, I can't see it unless they're remote. I don't know, because most of my friends are teachers. And so the summer is when they're off. And, I have little volunteers here and there, but now school's getting ready to start. And so I will be back to a team of one. So, what type of advice do you have for like a candidate like me that's in a rural area, limited resources in terms of getting people to help? I mean, my husband and my son, they have no choice. And my cousins, whenever they come into town, they have no choice. But other than that, that's kind of where I am. I don't mind knocking on doors. I don't mind I'm doing everything. Like I did school packs to donate today, labeling water bottles. I just, my husband thankfully has allowed me to work part-time so that I can devote most of my time for my campaign. But I would love any advice that you have.
Yeah. Okay, I've got lots of advice. First of all, try Arena. Go to arena.com. They train amazing Democratic staffers across the country. They have an entire database. You can post a job description on Arena's website. Follow up with me afterwards. It's Liuba, Liuba at votemama.org. Please copy Louisa at votemama.org on that as well, because she will make sure that I respond to you. But you should go to Arena's website. We'll send you the link, but you can just find it on their website. Post a job description. Start to look through their resume bank. That's the number one thing you can do. A lot of those people will travel and will join you where you are. If you can't find somebody through that, you go to local universities. Find volunteers, people who are local students, and get them to come and work on your campaign. Get them excited. Get local high school students, get college students. We had over 50 field fellows and over 50 finance fellows that were absolutely amazing, and my team built that out. Most of them were high school and college kids in the area who came and learned how to organize a field program and how to help do donor prospecting research, and they were absolutely incredible. So you can build out a team with volunteers from the local school. Some of them might be able to get school credit, but probably not, but it's still something that they can really enjoy doing. Put your friends to work. Put your family to work. It's good that your husband and your son are already doing it. Put the rest of them to work, especially the moms that are teachers. You can have them organize fundraisers for you. You can have them organize door knocking groups for you. Who do you have right now? Is anybody handling your field? What is your win number? Do you know? Ooh, you're on mute again. We can, if.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so my win number is 4,635 votes, but I would like to win by, 5,000.
Okay.
So for my area.
So you and I are going to chat offline about how many doors that means you need to knock and what kind of a team you need to build. So email me, email Louisa, and we'll chat about this, and I will help as much as possible. But that's how you start to build out your team if you don't know people who are political operatives in your area.
Awesome. Thank you, Bianca, and good luck. I love that. I know that by you hopping off of mute as well, someone needed to hear that you are doing this and that you're, have some of the same questions that probably they have. So I appreciate your question there, even though you didn't get to submit it before. So thank you. Anyone else? We've got about 15 minutes left, just a little over. So if you've got any questions or last minute reflections, please make sure you add those to the chat.
There's somebody from Louisville, Kentucky who's saying good luck. Deshaun, right here. Deshaun,
Yes.
Do you guys know each other? Are you volunteering for Bianca's campaign? There you go.
I love it. Making connections already. Drop your ways.
Deshaun should volunteer for your campaign.
I love this. This is why in the beginning I said, make sure you connect in the chat. So be sure to, drop your preferred ways of connecting, emails, websites, whatever's happening. Please, please, please. This is great. All right. So let's pivot a little bit to this next question. What can someone do to help initiate change if they do not have the desire or means to run for office or the financial ability to donate?
Exactly what Deshaun just did right now. That's what you do. You find another woman running and you volunteer. If you can't raise funds, if you don't have the personal money yourself, but you can help raise funds from other people, you can do that. Or you can organize door knocking. You can organize events. You can organize community events. Honestly, we did community coffee chats. What do we call them? We called them coffee with a candidate. I don't even remember, but it was so much fun. I loved these. And we would go and we would sit at a coffee shop, all over different coffee shops all over the district, and people would come. If you want to help a woman running for office, help organize those. Help organize different community groups. Help organize your friends to come out and knock on doors and come to those sorts of community chats. We used to do roundtables on particular issues where we would reach out to local groups across the district and would sit down. We had all of these issue roundtables where people would come and they'd be like, oh my God, we're so excited that a candidate actually wants to hear what we're working on, what our experience has been, and how you can help us. If you want to volunteer and if you want to help and you don't have money, organize those. Go into somebody's campaign office, reach out to their campaign team and say, I'm here, I'm volunteering, give me something to do, and then show up. Don't say you're going to volunteer and then don't show up. Make sure that you actually do it, because if they give you real work to do, they're going to count on you. That's what you should do. There is so much you can do if you don't have the money. You have the time and you have the willpower. You can help get somebody elected.
I love that. And I would love, because I know a lot of folks use social media for different campaigns, even, if people are working for their startups or at their companies. I would assume that, if you're trying to run for office, that your social media can also, social media strategy could also help. Maybe you're not the one that's running it now, Liuba, but maybe you have someone on your team. But can you give someone, for this question here, if they don't have the means or they don't, necessarily want to run for office, how can someone use their social media, let's say, or their network to, lift voices?
Well, there are two aspects there. One, if you're really good at social media and you want to help out a lot of candidates don't have a team to run their social campaigns. Volunteer to do that. I will tell you, during my congressional campaign, I had a communications consultant, but the person who ran my Twitter was a really, really good friend of mine who is the social studies teacher of the year in New York State. And he ran my Twitter account for my entire congressional campaign for free. because he knew my voice, he knew me well, and he could tweet. And our communications consultant helped him occasionally, but he handled my Twitter account for that. So volunteer to handle people's Twitter accounts. If you know them well and you can do that, do that. If you have a huge following on social media and you want to uplift the voices of other moms running for office, share everything about their campaign. Share their videos, share their stories, share links to their campaign, help get people to follow them, help raise money, share their donation links. Make reels. We just, one of our candidates, Jennifer Rourke, who's running for a state Senate seat in Rhode Island, she was running against the majority leader, the Democratic majority leader, who was anti-choice, and she was punched in the face by her Republican opponent, who was a cop at the time, at a Roe rally. And that happened, and both her Democratic and Republican opponents dropped out, and there is now a new Democratic opponent that she is running against. We made a reel about her campaign and what had happened to her, and we shared it on social media, and that got shared a lot because it was, you know, a less than 1.5 minute snippet of what was happening to her, but her story is so powerful, and she's literally the person that we need to see in office. She is a mama of 4, and she's running for all the right reasons, and she needs to be in that seat. Make reels on candidates, share other candidates' reels so people can understand what they're doing, learn more about their campaigns, and get involved. Share Jennifer Rourke's video. Please share that video. You can go to our Instagram account, share it, and share a link. Actually, if you go to my Instagram account, the link is still a donation to her campaign. Share that. Share it everywhere and help them raise money that way. The more you can share about these candidates, the more people get to know what they're doing, the more people can volunteer, the more people will talk to friends in their district and get them to get out and vote.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I love that you had that friend who could take over your Twitter as well. It's like an angel. This is what you needed.
he was wonderful, and he is a dad with 2 kids teaching full time, and he handled my Twitter, so you can do it.
Great. Thank you for that. I love that you're able to share from your lived experience as well. And like, you know, these things work. So try it out before you say no. All right. So I know that you talked about in your introduction next steps for our reproductive rights. So this question leans into that a bit more. So this question reads, why is it key to elect Democratic moms to defend women's health and reproductive rights?
Most of us are pro-choice because we are mothers. We understand what it's like to give birth and raise a child in a country that has the worst maternal mortality rate in the industrialized world, that doesn't have access to affordable childcare, that doesn't have access to paid family leave. We know what it's like to send our children to school and worry about whether or not they're going to come home. We understand these issues, and that's why we're pro-choice. And we have Republicans who are weaponizing motherhood and who are risking women's lives, children's lives, because they're trying to outlaw abortion. You cannot outlaw abortion. You can just outlaw safe abortion. And you need to elect people who get that and who will vehemently fight because they know that abortion is healthcare. You need to elect pro-choice Democratic women to school boards so that we have things like sex education in curriculum. That is critical. We need to make sure that we're electing pro-choice Democratic women as attorney generals so that we have women who are not going to prosecute, which our government now wants us to do. The fact that we had a doctor who performed an abortion on a child, and that now the Republican Party is going after that doctor more so than they're going actually after the rapist, is unconscionable. And that's what's happening. So the only thing that we can do is continue to elect pro-choice Democratic women who are willing to fight up and down the ballot. Go to Ballotpedia, figure out who's running in your district, go to Vote Pro-Choice's website. They have an entire report that you can download to see who is a pro-choice candidate. To remind you, every single mom that we support through VoteMama is a pro-choice woman. They're all pro-choice Democrats. Get those people elected. Work to get our candidates in office. Go to Vote Pro-Choice. See who else is running across this country who is pro-choice, because we are now talking about forced birth in this country. Forced birth and risking the lives of women and children. And the fact that my child has fewer rights than my mother did is just mind-boggling to me, and that has to change. And the only way it's going to change, unfortunately, is with voting and is with getting these incredible pro-choice Democratic women into office at all levels of government. Because the Republicans, they focus not just on the federal seats, but they focus on school board. They focus on town councils and city councils and attorney generals and secretaries of state. They focus on every level, and they're laser focused. And that's what we need to do as well. And we need to make sure that we are laser focused on electing pro-choice Democratic moms to these seats.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So actually, this is you teed me up really nicely here because you extended it into the education world and how politicians usually are working in that area, maybe outwardly or not. So this question leans into that a little bit more here, and it reads: I'm running for the school board in a conservative district. Do you have any helpful suggestions about reaching young parents to get out and vote? I feel like we are often in survival mode, and giving attention to elections is usually not a top priority for this demographic.
A lot of people don't understand why school board is so important. You have to remind people what the Republican Party is doing with the school board. The Tea Party actively targeted school board races back in 2008. One, it's usually an easier seat to win. Fewer people even know that there's an election happening, so fewer people come out to vote. You have to raise less funds as well, fewer funds. So a lot of people will run for these seats and not be there to advocate for children. They'll use them as jumping off points to the next political career move. We need people in office. The majority of people who serve on school boards are usually white, older men who don't have kids in the district. We need people who have kids in the district who understand this. And that's who you need to be supporting. So you need to communicate to the people in your community what school boards can do. In Florida, there is now a school board who has just passed a policy that if there is an LGBTQ child on a school trip or an overnight trip, that you have to alert all of the parents. That is child abuse. That is something that the school board can fight back. In Texas, we had educators trying to say that slavery should be called involuntary relocation. That is erasing the history of this country. And we had school boards fight back against that successfully. That is how critical school boards are. We have Republicans actively trying to ban books, actively banning books. We have Republicans trying to say that we need to argue both sides and numerous perspectives on the Holocaust. This is what's happening in this country. So when you talk to people, when you're running for school board, you need to make that clear, that it's not just about voting on the budget, which is incredibly important, but it's literally the Republican Party actively trying to change the fabric of this country, trying to change what we're teaching our children, trying to pass legislation that is actually child abuse, that will endanger people's lives. If you can talk to people about that, you can convince moms and dads and people who are not parents to come out and vote for school board races. Most people don't understand why it's important. Convince them, go out and talk to them about why it's important and how it will affect their lives. And usually in school board races, I mean, there are school board races in Louisiana that you have to raise $150,000 for, but most school board races, you have to raise, a couple $1,000s and your win number is not that high. You can go out and knock on all those doors and talk to all those people, get a good team of volunteers out with you to go and do that. And then if you are a Democratic mom running, come to VoteMama and we will talk to you about that. We have on our app, we have an entire cohort of all of our school board mamas running across the country, all talking to each other and sharing resources and getting trainings and doing all sorts of stuff, because we need to make sure that we're connecting school board mamas running across the country.
That's great. I love the grassroots heart that you still bring into all of this. So again, thank you for that. All right, so we've got about 5 minutes left. Wow, time has flown by. I told you all that time would fly by. I have a private question here that I love to raise, and I think this is a great way to just wrap up this conversation. Let's talk about self-care and this process of all the things that are going on, delivering human beings and trying to, tell the people that we need to, put people over profits. How do you maintain a balance once you're elected? So even before getting elected, let's say, and once you're elected.
I'm not good at maintaining a balance, so I'm probably not the person to ask. I will tell you, last night I fell asleep nursing my son. And he was still awake and I was asleep. And he said, "Thank you, mama," because it's his new thing to say. And I woke up out of a sound sleep, and my response, and I kid you not, I literally texted a friend because I was embarrassed that this is what I thought. But I said, "No, Andrew, you don't have any more money to give out to any more candidates." That was the thought that came out of my head when my 2-year-old said, "Thank you, mama," because I was sleeping and thinking, I need to raise more to give out to more candidates because we've endorsed so many moms this cycle. So I am really not great at self-care, which is terrible. I don't sleep. I nurse, I work around the clock. I love my job. I will tell you that that's part of my self-care, is that I genuinely love my job and would do it, if it weren't my job. So that really helps. But I will tell you, we have really good staff members on our team who very much do think about self-care. I will tell you what VoteMama does. I mean, we now have summer Fridays every other Friday. I give our entire team off 2 weeks around the holidays. So we just shut down the weeks of Christmas and New Year's and make sure that everybody stays home with their children. We have unlimited vacation days, so you can take time off when you need to spend time with your family. I think that that is critical. I think making sure that we are not communicating during off hours unless it's about fun stuff. I think that is something we really try very hard to do. In terms of self-care, my best advice is to do something you passionately love so that work does not feel like a chore. But other than that, I am not good at self-care. I will tell you that. My self-care is
It's passion. I love
I
it. No,
know,
you're
I know,
so
I
good.
know. I watch Grey's Anatomy reruns while I fall asleep nursing. That's it. That's what I do.
I love it. No shame there. And you know what? It's a wild world. So we need wild women like you all, to just, give all of your heart and soul into something that clearly you're thinking of the next generations. And I love to just remind us, and for those of us who are in this kind of work that are basically, trying to shift the paradigm, we've got a lot of unlearning to do, right? So even that comes with taking care of ourselves. This hustle mentality also is something that wasn't made by us. And so, it's great that you've got your team there to support you. And I challenge you, Liuba, because you are a great human being and I don't want to see you out for the count. I want your voice in here. And so we'll talk offline later because maybe I can give you some tips that I like as well. But you've got about 2 more minutes left and I would love for you to just have the final words. You've said so many encouraging things. You've dropped so much knowledge. You gave lots of helpful links as well in the chat. Can you leave us with some food for thought and then just remind us of how we can connect with you when we finish this conversation?
Yeah. I'm going to leave you with a completely non-political but funny thing that I went to the dentist with my daughter yesterday, who is 8. And as we were walking out of the office, she said to me, Nicholas, my son, who had been to the dentist the week before, she said, Nikki got a goodie bag on the way out. She's like, I didn't get a goodie bag. She's like, I really wanted one, but I don't want to be pushy. And I looked at her, I'm like, go back in there and be pushy and ask for your goodie bag. And she did. And she got her goodie bag. And I looked at her afterwards. I said, you always be pushy, because that's what you have to do if you want to get things done and you want to stand up for yourself and you want to make sure that you get what you deserve. Be pushy. It's good to be pushy. And I think watching her throughout my campaign and watching her throughout Vote Mama has been the most fun for me. There was a moment where I was driving home from preschool when she was 3 years old during my campaign, and she said, Mama, does Peter King have girls? And I remember thinking, holy God, where is this conversation going? And she wanted to know if he had women that ran his campaign, because I had women that ran my campaign. And she knew that women ran campaigns. And now Vote Mama is an entire staff of incredible women, and Mila loves them all and knows them all. And we have the most amazing people on our team. And Mila knows that women run organizations, they run campaigns, that she should be pushy. And I love that. I love that that's what she has gotten from all of this. And one of my favorite moments of my campaign, she asked me, we were at the bill signing for paid family leave in New York, and she asked if I was going to speak. And I said, no, it's not my event. And afterwards she went up, and one of my absolute favorite photos is Mila in her Peppa Pig dress and me holding her at the podium giving a speech. That's what I want my kids to take away from this. My son came in one day when I was working and he said, Mama, are you working? And I said, yes. And he said, are you trying to make the world a better place for me and Mila? And I said, yes. And then he leaned back and put his arms behind his head and says, now you want to take a photo of me, don't you? And this is what my kids are like. They have grown up watching badass women run for office. And that's what every person on this call should do. Make sure that your kids watch badass women running for office and doing what makes them happy, because it will grow up. They will grow up and it will give them that feeling that they can do it themselves, and that it's just the absolute norm to watch mamas run for office, watch mamas run organizations, watch mamas do whatever the hell they want to do that makes them happy, that will make the world a better place. So I love that that's what they've gotten from this. And I love that I get to do what I do. That's my self-care.
Yes, I love this. Yes, this is great. I love the stories. We've got people throwing digital confetti and applauding. And so just again, remind us for folks who might be rewatching again, yes, how can they connect with you?
Okay, go to votemama.org. That is our PAC website. VoteMamaFoundation.org is our foundation site. We were going to launch Vote Mama Lobby very soon, first week of September. So sign up for our mailing list so you will get the email when we launch it. My email is liuba@votemama.org. I am terrible with emails, so make sure if you need to reach me, you also copy Louisa, who is right here posting this in the chat, so you have this. Louisa is our political associate who literally hopped on a Zoom the other day that I was on with somebody else to give me the side eye and tell me I had to get to my next meeting because I was, of course, late. So she is amazing and wonderful and is the most organized person I know. So yeah, please copy her on it. And I would love to connect. And Bianca, definitely reach out. I want to hear more about your campaign. Deshawn is going to volunteer for you. So make sure that you reach out to Deshawn as well. And thank you for having me. And I'm really excited to chat with anybody who has questions. Please contact me.
Amazing. Yes, thank you. Thank you. We all need a Louisa on our team as well. All right. So this has been such a wonderful conversation. Thank you all for, I know we went over a couple of minutes, but I just wanted to make sure we wrapped it up good and tight here. There were no questions left unanswered. So enjoy the rest of your days. Good luck, everyone. Keep this message alive. This has been such an inspiring conversation. And now putting our bodies into the work is our next task. So we're closing this conversation and going out into the world to continue it on. Thank you again, Liuba, for everything. And we'll see you on the next Chat and Learn, everyone. Take care.
Thank you so much.